Welcome to another episode of The Shredder Show. Today, it's actually the second time Darren's been on this, but this is even better because it's in person in a fancy new studio. So I've got Mr. Darren Farrell, IFBB Pro, who's going to the Olympia this year. And also will be someone who'll be coaching me from now on, which I'm very, very excited about.
Me too.
Thank you very much for your time today, Darren. Today, we're going to discuss everything classic physique, bodybuilding training, and then some more personal questions in terms of like mentality, what drives you, some of the challenges you've been through over the years and recently, and how you've overcome out the other side of those. So thank you very much for your time.
No, I'm awesome to be here. You know, I've known you for years, so it's like it's funny. Usually, podcaster with people you don't really know, but this is like it's gonna be like a chat and catch up. So it should be good, and hopefully some valuable information for everyone.
100%. Now, to discuss actually interestingly why I came to you in terms of from like a bodybuilding coaching perspective. Like I'm a big fan in terms of modeling and not like in front of the camera, but like the same with like the business coaching offer and the fitness coaching we offer. Like I go to people who have walked the walk and done what I want to do, and that's the quickest way to learn. Is that something that you've done over the years in terms to get you through your bodybuilding career, and who's had the biggest influences on that?
Yeah, 100%. You know, obviously I have quite a extensive formal education in nutrition as well, but like I'll be the first to tell you that this industry and prepping people and getting people stage ready isn't as much about formal education as it's about experience and a different type of education that you can't go somewhere to learn. You can only learn it from people who are already doing it. So over the years I've worked with some top level coaches that I have felt were the best in certain fields. You know, like Patrick Chore, I think is incredible with managing nutrition and sort of meal timings and nutrients, insulin use. Obviously his sort of knowledge of that came from like Milos Sarcev, who's renowned for the insulin use. And I've spoken with guys like Milos, paid for consults with some of the top guys in the industry. And I've just watched the industry and just taken bits and pieces from different coaches. Like my training and my background and sort of all of that, I would say is heavily modeled originally from sort of Jordan Peters and then a combination of other things I've done as well. But I think a huge foundation of my knowledge has probably come from Jordan Peters, and then I've expanded on it with certain things and sort of created my own sort of way. You referred to Patrick then in terms of nutrition and meal timing. What was the specifics you took from that out of interest? He was just meticulous, like to another level. And it's something I talk about a lot with, like, you know, when someone's prepping for a show and stuff, they'll tell you they're 100%, but everyone's 100% is different. And, you know, I'm well known for being 100%, but when I worked with Patrick, I'm like, okay, there's still more room to improve and eke out an extra 1% better, like difference daily, just from timing of like your supplements around meals, like, and throughout the day, spacing out different supplements throughout the day, spacing out different like nutrient timings, you know, looking at like your post-workout window, looking at like your intra-workout nutrition, all just meticulous. And for a lot of people, like I remember when I first seen it and I was like, holy crap, that's a lot to do. I'm carrying around a box of pills all day and I'm doing all of this, but it's the sort of those little things add up to something, you know, and it opens your mind to that there is always more you can be doing. And that's one big thing I'll say to people is, you know, you think you're doing 100%, but you know, reality is do a lot of self-reflection and you'll realize you're not, you know. Just like the other day, I talked to like clients about like cardio, and I'm like, okay, you're 30 minutes of cardio, where's your heart rate at? They're like, I don't know. Okay, are you sweating? Not really. I'm like, I send them a picture of me after doing 30 minutes of cardio, and I can drench out my t-shirt. So there's an effort level involved there. And I think that's where it's important for people to understand the difference between like just ticking a box and ticking a box properly, because you can just tick the box, or you can actually see something through. Yeah, there's a difference between getting something done and actually doing something. 100%. In regards to obviously you working with Patrick and then you made the switch, what was the deciding factor in you changing coaches out of curiosity? So I went to Patrick because I was a huge fan of everything he's done, and I knew some of the athletes he'd worked with, and everyone had spoken quite highly of him. But like, listen, one of the realities of this industry is you work with a top level coach, you have to realize they work with top level guys, and if you're not at the very top, you're probably not getting the most attention to detail. No, sorry, not attention to detail, but you're not their priority always, you know. And for me, as a coach myself with my clients, I'm very responsive, I'm very hands-on, and Patrick was for an extent, and then I had an injury and I wasn't going to compete for another while, and then sort of check-in responses started taking a little longer, And, you know, just I didn't feel like I was anywhere near a priority for him at the time anymore. And also originally I'd wanted to go to him for just improving my own knowledge as a coach, and I felt like I'd taken all of that, what I needed from that. Sounds pretty cynical, but that's the reality of it. I think I'd learned what I wanted to learn from him, and then I felt like it was time to move on and try and learn something else. Because for me, although yes, I'm a very successful athlete, those who know me close will know that I do, and I put in what I do daily for like training and stuff because I love it, not because I want to be a top level athlete. And it's never been my goal. You know, my goal was never to get on the Olympia stage. It's just a byproduct of what I've been doing. Whereas I have been dedicated to being a coach for the last 10 years. Coaching is always going to be my priority, and that's where I want to leave a mark on this industry.
What fascinates me with that, what you just said, is the same I was actually saying to Michael behind the camera in terms of in the car. It's like, it's focusing on the process, not the prize. And it's like, say from like a business perspective, I just fucking love it. Like, yeah. I get excited every day to wake up at 4:30 and fucking get out and train and do whatever I have to do, because it's what sparks me. It's not just like the end goal at the end. And it's the same in terms of like me developing my physique. It's not just the way I want to look. It's the process of doing that I enjoy that. And I think that's where too many people fall short, is because they're too focused on, I want to achieve X, Y, rather than like enjoying the moment of what they're doing each day.
I think if your focus is on the end goal, you miss so many of the little details that actually get you to there. You know, you're focused on becoming an IFBB Pro, but you're missing out on the actual things you should be focusing on a day-to-day basis that are going to add up to being there. It's
a saying like, it's like, if you want to be a pro, then behave like a pro now.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, that's something I've done for the last couple of years. But for me, I've always been a competitive person. I've always played sport all my life. Like, I was bred playing sport, basically. I was born to do it. And when that was taken away from me through injuries and stuff, I needed something else to put my sort of focus on. And I just love the control I get from bodybuilding, that it's what I put in determines what I get out of it, you know, and I can see the improvements daily. I can see myself getting better. That's what it's about. Like, the shows, to be honest, like, if you see me on days of shows, I'm miserable. I hate getting on stage. I'm not someone who likes to be in the limelight. I don't like the shows, but it's just part of the thing, you know. But for me, it's all about the day-to-day thing. I think that's why I improve so much in my off seasons, because I just love the process. It's not about the prep, and it's not about that. So it's all year round, I'm focused on something.
Ironically, I'm exactly the same in terms of that, with like not wanting the highlights in terms of stage time. It's just enjoying the process to get there and see how much you can push yourself. And that's why, for me, more than like, say, from a fitness aspect compared to bodybuilding, or business compared to fitness, like, you control everything that happens with your body. If you lose weight or get lean, that's because of what you've done, your daily actions. There's no external factors like the economy or anything else that can affect it. It's down to you to like execute everything like you're supposed to do every day that will get you the end result. And I don't think there's anything else in the world that's quite like that. And it's an individual thing. You're not in a team sport where you're like relying on anyone else.
It's all on you, and it's quite like, I spoke about this. I can't remember the exact phrase I used about it, but it's a beautiful simplicity. That it is just that is what it is. You put in, and what you put in is what you get. Nothing else determines the outcome.
Why do you think so many people try and overcomplicate
it? Money. You know, you put out something that is like the next, all this complicated stuff, and sound like you know what you're talking about, and you know you're selling a product. Like, started back in the day with, you know, Y3T training by Neil Hill programs. You know, not taking anything from Neil Hill. The guy's a legend in the sport. He's an incredible trainer, incredible coach. But, you know, this whole idea of a Y3T program being the next big thing, and everyone jumped on, and everyone wanted to be a Y3T coach. It's phased out now because something else came in. The foundation of it all has always been hard work, progressive overload, be consistent. Doesn't matter what you do.
And I think the key word there is consistency. It's the same with everything. And it's, people don't understand the compounding effect of daily wins and how those things stack on themselves. And that's literally the key.
But it's funny, like, and I say it to everyone, I say bodybuilding is one of the most simple processes in the world. Any monkey could do it. But it's the application people fail in.
It's funny that you say that, because I often say to people sometimes that, not that I wish I was less intelligent, but if I didn't think things so deeply and overthink things, it would be easier, because I overcomplicate things in my own head, trying to like overcomplicate things that don't really make much difference, rather than just thinking about like lift as heavy as you can, make sure you eat in a calorie surplus, don't mess your digestion up, and sleep. That's it.
Trust me, I get that. You know, often I'm like, God, I wish I hadn't learned as much as I learned, because every day I'm like, should I do this or should I do that? Would this make a difference or would that make a difference? If I knew absolutely nothing and I just applied myself, I'd probably end up with the same result.
But that's why it's so important, I think, for even like, I have a coach, you're now helping me, you have a coach who's helping you, having someone from an external point of view to help you level up, because the same fitness business or whatever it is, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. I'll give it a great example. Like the last week or so, you told me about the salt thing. I've never weighed how much salt I was like taking daily. And I started weighing my salt and adding 12 grams of like pink Himalayan salt to my food. My body weight went up 2 kilos and I suddenly feel way better and I can train again and I like look way better.
Yeah.
Like, because you don't know what you don't know.
And it's funny because it's like you when you think about the purpose of that and you go, well, it's all about hydration and electrolyte balance. You're like, that's one of the most basic and important things you should have. And it should be like one of your number one priorities daily is managing your fluid intake and your sodium intake.
In particular, when you live somewhere hot like Dubai, like I was salting my food loads, taking those electrolytes, I thought it was fine. But until you actually weigh something and are specific, and like we talked about earlier, like paying attention to the details, you're like, shit, this is nowhere near enough.
Yeah.
And that's the critical thing.
Absolutely.
In regards to PEDs and like performance enhancing drugs and within bodybuilding, do you see any trends like with that are going on at the moment that are getting out of hand? I know we spoke beforehand in regards to a client who came to you recently, like giving some ridiculous stack that's way over the top. Is there anything for anyone listening to this that people should be wary of or use critical thinking with, do you think?
To be honest, I think from that side of things, I think that's the one of the main parts of the industry that is really improving is the actual education and knowledge that's been put out there regarding PED cycles. You know, like a couple of years ago, it was so faux pas that nobody would speak about it. It was like, oh God, you can't talk about that. But now that people aren't afraid to talk about it, and good and bad, you know, people talk out, I've been doing this, and you're like, God, you're an idiot, you shouldn't have been doing that. But actually educated people now are not afraid to talk. The ones who have been educated know what they're talking about. They're not afraid to talk about it because they're not afraid that, oh, it's going to damage my business that I talk about, you know, steroid use. So that's definitely one of the massive positives that's come out lately, and I think there's a far more educated approach with PED cycles, and I'm seeing less and less being used now in a trend. Like in general, there'll always be people who push the boat too much, you know, and as these more educated coaches who are having this approach start climbing, you know, we're seeing those other ones that like the more old school methods sort of weaning out.
What's the worst thing you've seen from the steroid side of things in bodybuilding?
God, I couldn't name just one. Like this, always just seeing cycles way too high, you know. But I'd say from a health standpoint, I'd say just the sort of like thyroid medication being crazy high, not being controlled right, just being stopped. You know, no sort of tapering off at post show and the effects it have on a hormonal level, especially within females who have come to me from other coaches and stuff like that.
From the outside, it's not something I have any experience in coaching, but from what I see, coaching females with performance enhancing drugs seems like the Wild West.
Yeah. Because like let's be real, people who start like this, nobody's really educated, and and then even more so. Yes, we're seeing information being come out now about, you know, cycles and stuff like that and PED use, but that's from experience, it's from knowledge, it's from learning. But there's very little people actually putting out educational content related to sort of PED use within females, because within females it's still a bit faux pas. You know, lots of girls are afraid to talk, to admit to being, you know, on gear, on using anything. So they're not. It's not really, if it's not being spoken about, it's not being ridiculed. It's not being like, nobody can say that's not what you should be doing. So yeah, that's still a bit like there, and I think there's also this sort of like, I won't lie, the amount of girls who come to me even within the bikini category and they're like, oh, my coach said if I wanted to be pro I needed to use X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, funny fact is every pro bikini girl I've put on stage has been natural. So it's absolutely not necessary. Is that saying that it shouldn't be used or it's not used? No, I'm not saying that at all. Of course, there's plenty of girls within the pro bikini level at the very top level are using, but I'm saying it is possible to be a pro bikini athlete natural.
What's your opinion on performance enhancing drugs in sport?
In other sports?
Yeah, like, and say, it's like, I know for a fact that it's rife within rugby, football, basketball, same. Every single sport out there, and no one wants to fucking talk about it. No one wants to admit it, but it's within every single sport in the world. And people don't understand that, like, the world is running on money and success. The people at the very top are never going to get caught. What's your opinion with, like, that, for example?
You know, obviously I come from a professional sporting background as well, and like yourself, I know it's used, and it's very commonly used within rugby, football, more so from rugby within a performance standpoint. A lot of it as well as within a recovery standpoint from injuries and stuff like that. But again, until like the people at the top, the governing bodies sort of accept that it's being used and they'll make it allowed, then nobody will talk about it, will they? Because they'll get punished and banned. So
it's a slippery slope because it opens a can of worms into almost. But I think it's almost like we were saying earlier in terms of how steroid use, so for example, in bodybuilding has improved because of people actually talking openly about it. Like, there being open communication with the world of, like, this is what's actually going on with it. I know Premier League footballers, for example, or professional rugby players would probably help there not be so much shady shit going under the radar, which is then causing problems from people not knowing what they're doing.
To be fair, I think at that level, when you're looking at like Premiership footballers and what's been done there, I think a lot of it is under the guidance of doctors and medical staff and stuff. So I don't think safety is really an issue there. It's probably more in the lower ranks with people, you know, not quite there looking to get a kickstart and get themselves known and get up, you know, especially within rugby. Like, I know a lot of underage rugby players who've spoken to me, like, I'll get in my DMs and asking me questions and stuff. And I know a lot of people from a performance basis, and they're like, oh, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm taking this. And I'm like, well, that's absolutely not necessary. You know, but it's what they've heard in a local gym.
That bro science chat.
Yeah.
What's your opinion in terms of, like, with your own career so far, what's been the biggest challenge for you becoming an IFBB Pro? And then when you were a pro, what was the biggest challenge then?
Pressure.
Or both of them?
Yeah, definitely. For me, like, the actual doing it day to day, and like, I love it. It's no different. I love that. I think for me, what I've struggled to manage is the external pressure I feel to perform and to take things to the next level, and, you know, try and always be at a level and live up to a certain name and things like that. It's something I'm definitely getting better with now, as I'm realizing that shit doesn't really matter. Trying to just get back to enjoying what I do and taking some of that pressure away. And I've noticed performance, mood, happiness, everything is a lot better since I've been able to control that. But it's something nobody teaches you, and it's a weird position to be in. Probably more so for someone like me who never expected it. And I've never been, like, you'll know me, I'm not someone who's loud and out there, and I'm quite private and quiet, and, you know, so it's a whole different ball game.
Do those pressures come externally from social media and the attention you get from that you feel you have to, like, almost live up to this person you've become?
Yeah, a little bit. And then I think that you fall into this sort of trap within it of external gratification, placing your values on, like, what people think and say about you and how you're looking or whatever, which is a very dangerous place to be, you know. You start losing sight of what's really important in your day-to-day stuff.
I would agree with that 100%. I think that's one of the things I've probably felt as my life changed a lot over the last few years. Like, I recently moved to Dubai in January, had a fairly traumatic move here with relationships and whatever. And then 4 years ago, I was an estate agent. So the world has completely changed for me in that period of time. Now I live in the desert and it's fun. But it's then the pressures that come with that from the outside, because people have high expectations of you to go and what you're going to do next. Like, like, people think you've got everything mapped out, you know exactly what the fuck you're doing. Like, and this is the thing, is like, we're all working this out, like, at the same time. Like, I've never done what I'm doing before right now. Yeah. You've never been to the Olympia before. Like, you're working this out to go along.
That's the crazy thing. And I said this to someone the other day. They said, they made a comment about, like, I was talking about how hard they work. And they're like, oh, you're the same. And I said, you're at a different level. I'm like, it doesn't matter what level you're at. What matters is what you put in on a day-to-day basis, you know. So I said, I'm no better than you are. Every person in the gym is the same, no matter what level you're at. Is, you know, there's no more, someone doesn't command more respect or anything like that. And it's kind of just coming to that, realizing that we're all on a level playing field, and it's not, when you sort of do achieve this sort of level of success and you are in the limelight, and obviously with our business and stuff, social media plays a huge part of it. It's crazy that people just expect that they deserve to know everything about you. And then you kind of feel this pressure that you should share more. And it's like, well, no, I still deserve to have a private life. At the end of the day, I'm a normal person.
Interesting question. And this is something I found, and I think very similar to me. I'm naturally a very introvert person. So I was incredibly shy when I was younger, and I've become extrovert in ability to almost like turn it on and have like an alter ego. So then I can like talk now on podcasts, or I can do whatever I can do. It's almost like I become this other version of me. Do you find like that's a little bit of like what's happened to you in terms of, you know, how to become almost like this different person? And do you also find that, for me, that I almost now really like just spending time on my own? Like my favorite thing is going for a walk on my own, or just sitting in a coffee shop on my own, just like with a pen and paper and just writing, brainstorming ideas or anything like that. I like solitude in a bit of a monk way.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I'm still not the most confident person. Like you, anyone who follows me will see I rarely talk on my stories and stuff like that. I'll post lots to do with the gym. The gym and training and all of that thing is my comfort zone, because I know I'm good at it. You know, and there has been this external gratification that kind of makes me feel like I'm good at that. Everything else is like, I'm still very much an introvert, and I live a very quiet life. You know, I live outside of the kind of main city here in Dubai. I live down in a villa complex with my wife, my dogs. And when I've done with my work and done with the gym and stuff, I'll watch Netflix. Recently got back into, my wife bought me a Sudoku book. So I do like 3-4 Sudokus a day, things like that, you know. Again, the solitude of just being in my own head.
What makes you happy?
Peace. You know, I do love a quiet, simple life, you know. I don't want to have stress, the opposite of stress. So for me, like when people ask what's your life goals and stuff, I just want like financial freedom and to be able to do what I love because I want to do it. I don't want to have to take on hundreds of clients for coaching because I need to make rent. I want to coach the people I want to coach. And luckily I'm sort of in that position now, and I'm coaching a lot of people, and that gives me a lot of joy, you know. I love show day weekends with clients. I love that process. It's more, you know, what I love is them being like, oh my God, I can't believe I looked like that, or I can't believe that happened because you did that. And it's like when they just see the reward for the hard work they've been putting in. That's just, yeah.
What makes you fulfilled?
I think I'm probably still learning that. It's something I've struggled with, is to feel fulfilled. I've always felt like I'm chasing something. Like always more. It's like every time, like I've spoken about this myself, is like I've always been like from a young age. Obviously, I spoke about being in sport. My parents were in sport. Sport was my life. You know, it was all I knew, all I did. I was, you know, trained every day of my life for hockey and then rugby as well. Played at the highest levels, and my sort of self-worth was placed on achievement within sport. And it's kind of all I knew. And like even then I was like, when I think about it from like a subconscious way, my parents almost made me think that's the way it should be, you know, like I always got rewarded for doing well in sport, you know. And it's like, it was never just about being a simple life. So it's kind of carried into my adult life, and like what's brought me fulfillment is like chasing another achievement. And it's like with every big, great achievement, there's a lull because you feel nothing.
What next?
It's a what next. It's like all of a sudden you do like turn pro, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I've got to try and place top 5 in a pro show, win a pro show, which I never actually planned on doing. The show I actually won was supposed to be my last show ever. I went to America just because I felt like I could have displayed something better, and I wanted to step on stage and be, you know, to be happy with how I looked and really bring my very best. Never expecting that to be a physique that would qualify for the Olympia. So I was like, oh, well, now it's on to the Olympia. Now people are talking, where do you think you placed at the Olympia? And it's like, God, now there's that pressure. It's like, I just want to enjoy it.
What's the plan after the Olympia?
I still feel like I can do more within this space in terms as an athlete. So I still don't feel like I've reached my maximum potential there. So I think probably another year of competing. I would love to do the Arnold, Ohio, and then also go back to the Olympia next year. So, so it's not just a once-off. And then I potentially say that I'll probably be done, but who knows?
And I think that's the rich part of life. And I think what we said, it was interesting there in terms of like what makes you fulfilled. I think often when you achieve goals, it leaves you feel very vacant. And that's, I don't know why I was thinking about this actually this morning in that context of like, I have goals of like the two main things I want within the next 2 to 3 years. And I was like, I thought in my head, I was like, but what are you going to do when you actually achieve that? Because you're going to want something else next. And that's almost one of the issues I found over the years, is I get stuck into this constantly chasing more and more and more. And I never get to where I want, because as soon as I get close, I move the goal. So I can never actually achieve fulfillment. Yeah. And something that I've had a psychologist tell me was like, when you're scaling the mountain, sometimes you need to stop and look back and enjoy the view, which is something that I'm trying to take context of, because sometimes I get so stuck in the like execute everything every day, like be the best at everything, try and progress, that you don't actually like see how good life sometimes is in front of you, and you take things for granted.
100%, and that's something I'm sort of in the same situation. I think the last couple of like months, I've done a lot of reflections. Probably the first time that I've ever kind of been like, I'm proud of that. Despite what the driving factors behind it, I'm still proud that I did that. At one point I'd actually taken down all of my framed bodybuilding achievements from the house. I took them all down and put them in a spare room, because I was sick of looking at them, because they just made me feel nothing. And then I kind of talked, and I worked with a psychologist, and she helped me massively in terms of the same sort of thing, being able to take charge of everything, and actually look at the positives behind what I'd done and be proud of those, because if you're not proud of what you've achieved, then it was all worth nothing.
Why? Because we obviously have the same, I'm not going to say the word issue, same challenge with this. Why do you think men struggle with this? In particular, I define us both as fairly successful in our fields. Like, why do you think we struggle with this?
Because men are afraid to talk, bottle everything up. It's society teaches men that you have to be strong. Even as a kid, you fall and you cut your knee and you cry, and what's your mum tell you? Be a big boy. Big boys don't cry. Big boys don't show emotion. It's all on a subconscious level, and it's gone through, and it carries through in life. And it's like it's seen as a weakness for men to kind of express their emotional side, and you become such an alpha, and everything gets bottled up, and it ends up getting to that situation where you just don't have any control of yourself and who you are.
I would agree with that 100%. And I think I've probably very much had one of those years this year where like this year I've cried more. I probably haven't cried for 5 years, but I probably cried like every 2 weeks this year for whatever different reason of just different shit going on. And it's one of those things I think life as you get older is about becoming self-aware of who you are and what you really want, and then changing your life so then it comes in accordance with that. And one of the things that like I'm incredibly proud of you as a friend is I know you've spoken openly about this before, of like trying to commit suicide and how you've overcome that. Have you got any advice for anyone who's maybe struggling with anything in that aspect, and like what's helped you come out the other side of it?
So it's always a really hard one to answer, and it's very hard to give, like, because for everyone the answer will be different. Like I'm not knocking that like therapy doesn't work or whatever, but I tried talking therapy, and that made me feel worse. I needed a much more like, and now I'm working with a therapist that is more, it's not like talking about my problems, it's like talking about my solutions, like putting into the daily what I do on a daily basis and activities that compound a more positive mentality. I think the most important thing is anyone who is struggling is don't be afraid to admit it. That's probably just the first step. What you do after that is based on what's causing the issues for you. So that will be different for everyone. But I think is don't be afraid to confront it. And that's where I was for a long time. I looking back, I know I was suffering from depression for a long time, but just ignored it. And then I even remember the first time that I did speak to my wife about it, and I went and seen a doctor and stuff. And when they told me, like, they were like, I was like, it was like being told I had cancer. Something you just don't expect. It's like the end of the world. And reality is, it's not. It's something that you just need to confront and face head on, and work towards getting through.
I would agree with that 100%. And I think it's the greatest self-challenge in life is becoming happy, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. Because on the face of it, like as human beings now, we have life pretty easy, like food, shelter, clean drinking water, all that sort of stuff. But then actually like being happy and content in who you are actually becomes another challenge in a lot of respects.
Yeah, and that's because we're now as a society being sort of groomed to that you always need to be better. You need to chase huge goals. You know, social media makes you see other people doing remarkable things in your field and stuff like that. And it's like you think, okay, so you ignore what you have, and it's always focused on what you don't have rather than, so it's a very, you're setting yourself up to failure straight away there. If you're always focused on what you don't have, you're never going to be happy.
And I think when you talk about where people have a huge amount of success they portray on social media, you don't see what's going on behind the closed doors. So like, for example, my life was imploding in January. Like one day I was getting divorced, next day I had to clear out my house, next day my Instagram got disabled. So like my personal life collapsed, my business collapsed, and I was like, I was fucking low. And there's a photo of me holding a piece of paper I found on my phone the other day. When you get your account disabled by Instagram, you have to send them a photo of you holding a piece of paper with like some numbers on it. Like I literally look like I want to kill myself. It's like not a good situation in terms of that. And that for me was like a real low point. I was living in a hotel of my own in London. And I think when you've been to your own like real low and pits, it then makes you a stronger person to come back and builds a resilience, because you can't have like the light of the day without the dark of the night.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I think everyone's been there at some point, you know. I know I have.
In that regards to your own sort of darkest moments, I know you've had, I think from looking at social media, you've had issues in terms of your own relationships. Is that something you're able to talk about? Yeah,
well, listen, I'm very much in the limelight, and I think, you know, everyone's probably had their say on this and kind of know something's gone on. And, you know, obviously this year, like I spoke about my dealings with depression this year, it probably, qualifying for the Olympia was probably the worst thing that happened for me. Because I never sort of, and I can say this now because I've spoken with my therapist and stuff, and I'm understanding of it, where my issues like develop with like fulfillment and stuff like that, and achievements, and, you know, qualifying for the Olympia in this sort of mental state I was in, the pressure I started to feel on that, and it just brought back all this sort of negativity and this lack of fulfillment, and, you know, the issues that I've had in the past with my depression never fully dealt with. You know, having suffered sexual abuse, and it just, you know, again, because I just didn't want to speak about it, so I kind of just kept it all to myself until I just imploded. I knew I was unhappy, like I was massively unhappy, and I could see it. I had slipped back into these old routines of, you know, I'd still train, but I'd get up later in the day, I'd do very little, I'd sit and watch YouTube, and, you know, very unproductive and just very unfulfilling, and it just spiraled. This point where I was just like miserable in myself, but not being able to admit that to myself, not being able to see it, you know, I convinced myself that it was like I was unhappy in my marriage, I was unhappy with where I was in life, and, you know, I needed that to change. And it was like, I look back and it's weird, because now I look back and it's like watching someone else. It doesn't feel like me. It's like an outer body experience. And, you know, I spoke with my wife, and was like, you know, I'm unhappy. I'm unhappy with us. I don't know if I'm in love anymore. I think I need some time to myself. Moved out, you know. And still at that point, I didn't really seek any help. You know, I was miserable, and I just, you know, did what stupid guys do and distracted myself with another woman. Quickly realized that I was even more miserable, and hit a very, very low point, and just like everything fell apart for me at that point. I was like, didn't know where I was going to live, didn't know where I was going to go in life, and that, like, it was just like reached the point where I was just like, I didn't see a point in going on with life at that point, which, you know, led to me attempting suicide.
That's okay. And in that regard, I know where you've been, having been through that relationship issues early in the year, which is why, like, I can understand. And then at the time when it was like, I knew from the outside what was happening, which is why I tried to reach out to you at the time, because when it was happening to me, there was like no one there. So it was like, it was difficult to deal with. But
yeah, it was and I remember that.
We're both fucking going now.
And yeah, I just didn't, my head wasn't in a good place. I couldn't think straight. And luckily, after that, I did get the help I needed. I did start seeing a therapist who was helping me, did start speaking with my wife, and start sort of piecing the bits together, working out where I was at, working out what my issues were, and just day by day trying to be more positive in my approach to life and put things in place, and also remove a lot from my life, remove a lot of people from my life, remove a lot of what I was placing importance on, change my mentality towards things and start actually living. It was the first time I took a holiday in years. It's like I realized that what's the point in all this if you don't actually live, it's taken a long time, it's been months, for like I'm very lucky that, I was able to work things out with my wife. That she was very understanding, well, as understanding as you can be. It takes a very strong woman, which she is. And yeah, probably now in the best place we've ever been.
And it's, well, I have to say, I remember actually seeing you go on holiday, and I was actually so happy for you because I'd never seen you do that. And it's almost like, not you'd become a normal person because, I was like, he's actually enjoying life once, because you're the most like fucking meticulous person I probably know in terms of running. I remember the first time like meeting you, going to the cinema before you're taking the meals with you, like everything's like on point. And at some point, I think that almost builds up a frustration where, like, in your fucking head, you're going to explode. Yeah.
Well, all of that was a front and like a cover to like control the issues that were really going underneath. That if I could do that, at least I had that part of my life in control when everything else was falling apart inside my head. Whereas now, like, I'm far more relaxed from that sense of things, and placing less importance on what the outside world thinks of me. So now I'm just being able to live day to day and enjoy myself.
And I think the most difficult thing to do is worry more about what you think of yourself than what other people do. But unfortunately, it's the other way around. We're all about that comparison syndrome, about like Bill next door, who I don't even fucking like. What does he think about me, rather than like deep down, what do I think about myself and how do I look at myself?
It's mad because you do start doing that and you reflect on things and you look and you're like, I hate that person I was. I was like, I looked back at it and I was like, God, I was rude to people. I was this, I was that, and I see like certain frustrations I'd be taking out on other people and stuff I did. I'm like, God, that person was not who I want to be. It's not the man I want to be. It's not the person I want to be remembered for. Deep down, I know that I'm someone who genuinely wants to help others and genuinely cares about people. And, I'm quite an emotional kind of a guy. I'm not like your typical standoff person. So, I'm getting more in touch with that person and being more comfortable being me.
Do you like reading?
Reading?
Yeah.
I want to like reading. Okay. I struggle because I've never really done it's mad. I think back and like, I even look at like times in school, if we had like assignments like that, I had, because of like all the sports I did and scholarships and stuff, I was always allowed, if we had to like read a book to write an essay on, I'd get the notes given to me from the teacher. So I've never really, it's something I want to do, and I have started reading. I read one of Lewis Howe's books. And I want to read, I have it at home, Stephen Bartlett's Happy Sexy Millionaire.
I'll come to that in a minute, but that book, literally, I read it and I was like, it's like me talking to myself.
Yeah.
Because it's like, when I don't know, so for example, like I'm 32 now, when I was 25, it's like, you can have money, live in Dubai, you have like fucking great body, like from the outside, you live in a fucking amazing place, like nice car, like you should have everything. I can go anywhere I want, do whatever I want with whoever I want. From the outside, I should have it all and be the happiest man in the world. Yet a lot of the time, I'm still like, end up being shitty with people, I'm unhappy and not content. And that's when you suddenly realize this picture you had of yourself when you were 25 years old is, when I have these things, I'll be happy. But you realize that that's not actually what brings fulfillment, is these materialistic things. And it comes back to what we're talking about in terms of like how you look at yourself and your own self-worth, which is what makes you happy, rather than the things you own and things you possess and who you are online.
Yeah, massively. I had conversations similar to this with a client the other day, because he was like, he's got massively into the whole fitness journey and stuff. And he got himself in incredible shape at the age of 45. And he's like, it's mad, I'm away. And he's like, I'm afraid, like, he's like, I went out for a few drinks and the next day I didn't want to take my top off. And he's like, because I'm more conscious of how I look now. And he was like, before, when I was just fat, I didn't care. And I said to him, it's like, the more you get into something and the more you like really apply yourself to it, the more serious your goals are, the more you expect of yourself. But then further, so it's like it's mad. Like the people who are higher up in the fitness industry are probably the most self-conscious of the way they look. You know, they go on holidays and they're like, God, I don't want to go to the pool in my swim shorts because I'm not happy that I don't have the perfect six-pack right now. They go down and, you know, some fat German man with 20 stone overweight's like having the time of his life, doesn't give a shit what he looks like because he places no importance on physical appearance. Whereas, you know, this person who's like, fitness is your life, your sole importance is on physical appearance. And I've been thinking a lot about that, and I think, why is that? I said, if it was just important to you because you loved it, it wouldn't. But that's when I think you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Your importance of it is based on you want to be so good at it and want to be at the top in it and look this amazing because of what people think about you. If you were solely working out and just like training and doing all this because you loved it, you wouldn't really care what other people thought about you. You just care how you looked yourself, and you would be quite comfortable in yourself.
And I think that's what's important. It's like, and I see a lot with people, say for example, people come to me for like business coaching or, you know, even fitness coaching. People aren't true to their values. So for example, from a business coaching perspective, where people want to be successful online coaches or whatever, that like they're in terrible shape themselves. They don't know how to train people. It's like, if you were true to your values, you would be in great shape just because you love the process, you love the shit, you'd love learning about training and nutrition. And then as a byproduct, you would then having a successful business, even if you were really bad at business or in marketing or whatever.
Hey, I'll put my hands up. I've been the worst person in the world managing my business because I placed no importance on the side of like marketing and any of this sort of stuff. And I've been pretty damn successful purely because obviously people buy into me and I get results and I live and walk the lifestyle and something that obviously comes across. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, God, if I actually just tried to actually build a proper business here and I would put something, it would be far more successful.
And I think that's what it comes down to, is like walking the walk in what you do because you're true to the values of what you actually enjoy. Like bodybuilding is your passion and you love it. And like fitness, weight training and everything like that is my passion for me as well. And that's why me actually doing the shows in the coming weeks and stuff again has like relit the fire for me, because before I was almost a bit lost in terms of like, respectfully, it's relatively easy to stay in good shape and just not piss around, but like not really have any definitive goals. But I think as men, as much as we talk about goals don't make you happy, it's the fulfillment in the process of chasing a goal that makes you happy, because it gives you something to like chase after. It's like when you're in number 2, you want to be number 1, so you've got someone to chase. When you're number 1, it's harder to motivate yourself because you've got no one there.
It's not different to me. Like people are probably surprised to hear this, but my goals are not so much bodybuilding related, but it's like by the time I'm 40, I'm like, I want to have done an Ironman. You know, so it's just like, and if someone's like, why? Because I hate walking. I hate it, but it's like, to prove to myself I could do it. It's one of the hardest things in the world you can do. I want to do it. I like to have a challenge.
But that comes down to, you want to look at yourself in the mirror and know what you're worth. Yeah.
It's just, you know, I just see it as like, and I have no experience. Okay, granted, back when I played sport, I did a lot of running and I was very fit. So I can do the running aspect. You know, I've done some cycling, swimming wise. So it's going to take me a long time to get there. But I'm like, you know, if I know I have the mental application to do it. You know, I've been through some hard preps. If I can do what I do, I can just apply that same mentality to another field easily.
When it comes back to bodybuilding, what's the biggest mistake you've made in a prep before?
Doing too much. Definitely doing too much. Prime example, my pro debut, the UK show in 2020. Right during the lockdown, I remember it was the show that was supposed to be on a Saturday. I was over there. I remember it was Sunday. I remember because it was a Sunday evening, and I was actually in Becky's brother's house, and we're sat there, and I got a text message through from someone being like, I was seen on the news. It just announced that we're going into lockdown from Thursday, and the show was supposed to be on Saturday. And it's funny. Most people be like, "Got it." I was like, "Yes." I don't have to do the show, because I knew I wasn't in great shape. I knew I had messed up prep. I was like, let's get pizza. And I got a message through, and it was like, don't abandon prep. Show's going to be moved to Wednesday. And I was like, oh, shit. But that prep, I was training doing 2 weight sessions a day, 6 days a week, and cardio on top of that, you know, dieting hard. I remember at about 6 weeks out looking like incredible. Really, really good. And then things just got worse and worse and worse as I got into the show, because fatigue buildup was massive, output was too high, food wasn't enough, My body just shut down. I literally just got like, I remember saying, like, every time I was checking in, I say to Becky, I was like, I'm getting smaller and fatter every week, you know? And it was purely from just doing too much. You know, that's one of the biggest things on prep is managing output, managing fatigue, and managing cortisol. It's not just about, and as a coach, I'll always say, like, any coach can just keep lowering your food and increasing your cardio. That's fucking monkey can do that. You know, actually managing someone's hormones and managing someone's cortisol levels and knowing when to push, knowing when to pull, that's what will get someone in shape.
What would you do in that scenario? Say you had a client who's starting to go down that route.
It depends how bad, where they'd got to. If it was like they'd literally hit the point where it was like they were shutting down, nothing was working out, but it was way too high, I'd be like, right, 3-4 days rest, high food, you know, reset everything, go from there, pull back on cardio, try and increase their food to a baseline. You got to remember, you're increasing their food, they're still going to be in a deficit. You want just allowing them to function and allowing their training performance to go up. So there's like a snowball effect there. The more food and less output they're doing, training performance will go up. So you'll get a yield return there in terms of fat loss from that alone.
That makes sense. Now, coming into the other aspect in terms of what we're looking at, asking another bodybuilding question. I remember we talked about this in the previous podcast in terms of you put on a shit ton of muscle mass when you first came out here originally. What is the secret to doing that? Because obviously I'm trying to do this the next year after the show. Like, what would you suggest to me, for example, is the thing to really push the needle in terms of adding on muscle tissue, as much muscle tissue in a year? Like, what did you do, or what would you do?
Consistency. That's as simple as it sounds.
A sexy answer.
Yeah, just there is no magic answer, but it's doing the simple process over and over again every day, and it's a hard thing to do because it gets boring, you know. It's just, and not trying too hard with it. You know, the biggest thing that ruins most people's off seasons and their progress is they try and push too hard with food too soon, and then it's appetite take. Like, how many people? Oh, I can't eat now, and they've only been trying to go into a surplus. They've been only 3 months into an off season. If you look at my off seasons, they're generally 8+ months, and I never once take a break on them but it's slow. And like, everyone always says, oh, you stay lean in your off season, because I don't push too hard. You know, my food will go up a little bit, my weight will go up a little bit. I'll do a holding phase. I'll never go like, so say I go from 240 to 245 in like a couple of weeks, and then it stalls at 245 for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'm not then going to increase food. I'm like, no, I'm going to hold and own this weight, make this weight mine, hold it there, start feeling comfortable. Okay, now I'm starting to feel hungry. Push food up a bit, allow it to go to 250, same thing again. Yeah, just patience, consistency, and just taking things slow.
I think that's very much ingrained in society where we chase things too quickly, and everyone wants quick success tomorrow. Whether it's building muscle, losing body fat, they try and push their body too hard on either building muscle or dropping body fat, and it fucks them over within like 2 weeks probably.
Like, that's the nutrition aspect, I think. But the biggest thing for me in the last sort of couple of years and the progress I've made has been down to the accuracy of my training. Like, anyone who knows me knows that, like, I'm massive on form, execution, and then I've just got this mindset that I have to beat myself. You know,
it's interesting because I would agree with that 100%. Because when I first met you, you and Jamie were training together. You were training like fucking crazy high volume, loads of crazy shit, training twice a day. And now you've gone the other perspective in terms of like progressive overload, more sort of generally straight sets from what I see, more of a conventional style training with like really tight execution. And I think your body's responded phenomenally to
massively, and I've become more in tune with my body as well. Like that I recognize what's productive and what's not. Like, even now, with like for my leg training at the moment as a prime example, you know, I obviously had a quad tear leading into prep. I recovered from it, and then I was like, right, I need to get back some of this volume in my legs. Because I noticed that there was a little less pop to my quads. I was like, I need to get this volume back. So we increased the frequency of my quad training. So there was, obviously there was a leg day with a certain amount of quad volume, and then obviously in my pull hamstring day then became a pull leg day, putting in like 3 sets of leg press. And at the start of this like training block, for example, my pendulum was 3 plates plus a green band. Now, in the past few weeks, that's gone to 6 plates plus a green band. So I've doubled the weight that's on there. So I was doing a top set and a back off set. But now that top set is creating such a demand on my body that I was like, I was just taking 10, 15 minutes rest before the back off set. And then I was doing the back off set, and I'm like, it's half the weight and I'm still not achieving any more reps. I'm like, there's zero purpose to this. But then when I thought about it, and you think about the actual total load volume being moved, I've gone from moving 60 kilo plus screen band, so let's say 90 kilo of tension by 10 reps, 900 kilo. That's now gone to six plates times 20 is 120 times 10 reps. That's now, we've doubled the thing. So if you think of, you look at the weight volume moved in that one exercise, in the one set now is more than what the two sets used to be. So you have to take that into account. It's like, well, that second set now is just driving too much fatigue, and it's going to take away from my legs. So like my leg volume now, because my strength is like at an absolute all-time high, is very little. My compound movements are just one set. And that was just me being just in tune with it, being realistic myself. What's actually productive here? If I'm doing the second set and I'm not feeling it and it's not really having any productivity, I may as well just be running on a treadmill and burning calories, because that's all that set's doing for me.
And I think this is a huge mistake people make, is they associate training volume with burning calories, with getting in shape. And weight training is a terrible and an inefficient way to burn calories. Do cardio for that, or eat less food. Like, this is not what weight training is designed for.
What you do on the gym floor is nothing to do with calories. Everything you do outside of the gym is managing your input and output.
One question for you: what does the future hold for Darren Farrell? What's the plans in terms of, obviously you mentioned briefly in bodybuilding, but business and later in life? And I know one of the things I remember you saying to me before, that one of your goals was you want to be one of the best coaches in the world and held in like the highest regard, which again is one of the reasons which attracted to me to you, in terms of like, you walk the walk, you get other people who are pushing to very high levels, and you've set high goals in terms of the standards you set for yourself in coaching. Like, what is your aspirations in that point of view? So
within bodybuilding, from a personal, as an athlete, I kind of feel like I've done everything I wanted to do at this point. As I said earlier, the only thing is maybe compete for another year, cement myself, and get back to another Olympia. And from there, then I'm 34 years old, so I'm like, at this point now, I'm thinking family, longevity, and my body's taking a battering. It's not the. I'm not going to say it's not the healthiest, because I don't mean it from a health standpoint. I feel from a functional and mobility standpoint, I'm just like, I'm sick of being heavy. I'm sick of walking around in off season like 270 pounds, not being able to, I go to the mall and walk, and I'm like, oh God, I want to sit down, So I'm probably going to bodybuild personally maybe another year, do it another year, and then I'm going to step into like more functional training, more hybrid training, get back to being like an athlete like I used to be, doing running, cycling, work towards that sort of Ironman in a couple of years, but sort of have that crossover of still hypertrophy along with performance-based training. Something that I'm really looking forward to. I think it'll be a massive challenge for me, and that way it's kind of a good crossing the bridge that I can still look good, feel good, but be a lot more mobile and perform. From a coach standpoint, I've still so much more within this industry I want to do, and that's where I feel like I can offer the most. Is I do want to be, as you said, like, I want to work with the highest level athletes. I want to put loads of people on the Olympia stage. I want to be at that level. So, and I think stepping back as an athlete will allow me then to excel more further in there. I feel like now I've walked the walk. I've proven I know what I'm doing. That I no longer need to be Darren the athlete to attract people to work with me. I can just be Darren the coach.
I love that. One question I love to ask people at the end of podcasts: if you could give yourself one piece of advice when you're 18 years old, what would it be?
One piece. Not take things too seriously. Do things because you want to do them. Yeah. Do things because you want to do them. What actually, if nobody was watching, nobody existed, social media didn't exist, what would you do? Do that.
That's a fucking great answer. Thank you very much, Darren. For everyone who enjoyed the podcast, make sure you subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. Check out Darren. I'll check out his Instagram and bits and pieces below the podcast. And thank you very much.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.